Could have been worse. Okay, I don't have a Sammy. These stats make me happy. I can't do it. I can't do it personally. I did not trust a single one of these people for a second. Hey y'all, it's Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this video, we are going to be doing my May wrap up. All right, before you get to anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, and you have to tell me in the comments what is the best book that you read in May. I am rip-roaring ready to go to jump into this wrap-up after looking at my stats because in all honesty, apparently May was actually a pretty good reading month for myself. I just did not really realize that while it was happening. So starting from the top, I read 12 books in May, and across those I read 3,377 pages. That does include converting audiobook hours to pages, but when it does come to audiobook hours, I listened to just about 45 hours exactly. Very satisfying. My average rating for the month was 3.83 stars, which is an improvement over last month, so I'm happy to see that. And also, I didn't have any DNFs. Like I said, these stats make me happy. Looking over to my genre breakdown, I do have a few that I specialized in, but I did go pretty across the board this month. I read 1 fantasy book and then 3 horror, 1 magical realism, 2 manga, and then 1 mystery, 3 romances, and then also 1 sci-fi. Looking at my series, I did start into 2 new series, unfortunately, though I did read 3 continuations. Sadly, I did not finish or DNF any though. For the little goals I do keep for myself, obviously I did read a manga or comic, though I did not read a nonfiction book No, I did read a book that was more than 450 pages, so 2 out of 3, not bad. And last but certainly not least is how many books did I read off of my owned TBR, and that was 3. Could have been better, could have been worse. All right, and before we dive into reviews, a little reminder, I do only review books in my wrap-ups, which I have not talked about in dedicated reading vlogs. I had 2 come out in May. First was a Star Wars canon project, and then second was kind of a compilation of previously failed vlogs. So I'll have links to both of those videos in the description down below if you're intrigued. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the reviews. Let's work through these chronologically, make this easy. So starting at the top, the first book I finished this month was actually my April pick for the Geek Squad book club, which I host over at my Patreon. I have a spoilery reading vlog available if you're interested. I'll have my Patreon link down below. But we read House of Idyll by Delilah S. Dawson. I was so excited when this got picked, seeing as how I'm 2 for 2 of 5-star horror books from this author. And the setup sounded so up my alley. We start out following this young woman who not only loses her housing, but also both of her jobs on the same day. However, she is lucky enough to run into this guy that spearheads a commune of artists, and it's run by her favorite rock band from when she was a teenager. With nothing else to lose, she decides to take this opportunity, gets free housing, free food, free clothing, and an opportunity to put all of her focus onto her music. However, of course, the longer she is on this commune, the more things start to seem a little strange. If I'm being completely honest, I did not love this one as much as the 2 prior books I've read from this author. But that being said, her writing is just so good. It is so impeccable. She always manages to match the vibe, aesthetic, and tone of the story in her prose in this way that is so well done and really adds to the atmosphere. Going into this story, I was kind of already a little bit on edge. I do love a good cult book, so pretty immediately I had like my eyes open for any red flags. Even with that, I do think Dawson still built suspense very well, and slowly you start to get more and more uncomfortable the longer the main character is there. But at the same time, I was always constantly aware of it. I was never really lulled into this like false sense of security that the main character had. I did not trust a single one of these people for a second. And that meant while I did like the story, I did feel like it kind of dragged a little bit. Even though this is a shorter book, the gore was still very good. I did like the final answer and reveal that happened at the end. There's like a last minute twist that takes place too, and honestly, I could definitely see some people not enjoying it, but personally, I really liked it. Even though I didn't love this one as much as Bloom or Guillotine, it was still a really solid read. I still gave it 4 stars. Next up, I was finally able to continue on with Kaiju number 8 in volume 3. The series is set in a slightly dystopian world where they have these kaiju emergences, and Japan gets more than anywhere else. We follow Kafka, who initially is a cleanup person for these kaiju emergences, but he has always wanted to be on the defense task force and finally gets the opportunity to actually do so. At this point, he is on the team, and he is kind of sort of finding his groove, maybe. The second volume ends in the middle of a giant kaiju emergence that is taking place. And so we're getting to see the team actually in action, how they all work together, and then also how Kafka is managing this with his new abilities. I really liked this one just as much as the last two. I'm really enjoying getting to know the entire cast. I think the action is very well done here. And though we've seen that there are a lot of different personalities in this group, it's been really fun to watch the dynamics start to develop between all of them. Yeah, I would definitely give this one another 4.5 stars. I'm really excited to keep on with this series. I'm having so much fun. Next up, I read Made Her Wicked by Elizabeth Hobbs, which is the second in the Marigold Manor series. This is a cozy historical mystery series following Marigold, who is very much a woman of the future, even though it is set in I think the 1890s. After some family drama in the first book, she has been able to gather enough funds to return to school. And so she is actually attending Wellesley College, which is a university dedicated to women. And she is trying to get a degree in archaeology. However, not long after arriving back to school, she ends up finding the body of this young woman. But apparently nobody on the campus actually knows who this girl is. I do enjoy a good whodunit. I like Marigold enough as a main character. She's very Mary Sue in my opinion. But I think the thing I really liked about this one was getting to learn about women in this time period and how they were trying to improve their lives, improve the societies they were living in, the industries they were interested in, and really trying to help one another. That was probably the biggest highlight for me in this. We do get to meet numerous other students at the university who have different specialties like photography, chemistry, literature, all this kind of stuff. And it was really fun to see how they were maneuvering their way into the industries and making strides forward for women. Not to mention the characters themselves. Some of them were really fun. Some of them were really zesty and have some quirky elements to them. And while some of them were more easy friends to Marigold, it was fun to see the ones who kind of had a headbutting dynamic with her and watch that unfold. So I did really like the setting and the cast of characters in this one. That said, the mystery itself, I have complicated feelings about. The mystery as to who the victim is the main focus for the first half of the book. Personally, I put that together so fast. I figured out who it was, how the situation laid out, who was going to be behind everything so quickly that it was a little bit of a slog waiting for Marigold to kind of put things together and figure this out. But that being said, once they do figure out the identity of the victim and then they start to work on actually setting up a case against the person they believe to be the perpetrator, I did like that angle. And it does make a lot of sense given the fact that Marigold's beau, Cab, is a lawyer, which is another thing about this series. It does have sort of a slow burn romance between Marigold and Cab. They both have strong feelings for one another. They've both admitted this to each other because of just who Marigold is and the fact that she wants to have an actual career, try to improve her standing as a woman on her own. She doesn't want to marry Cab. And it's just so silly to me the way it keeps playing out. It's you guys could just have a romance and not get married. Wild thoughts. I know it's due to the time period. Overall though, this one was a fun read and it did keep me really engaged the entire time. I'd probably give it 3.5 stars. I keep trying cozy mysteries. I really want them to be something I can love. Next up, I also continued on with the Cells at Work series with volume 3. So this is a really fun action adventure series that is set inside a body and you're specifically following a red blood cell and a white blood cell. At least majority of the time, there is actually an issue in this one that follows T cells. Whilst interesting and did teach me more about T cells because of the layout of the story, the red blood cell and white blood cell, at the very least, I have established a personality for them. I'm a bit attached because I have had 2 volumes following them at this point, but the T cells are just minor background characters we've only seen here or there. So I didn't really care enough about them yet to really have an entire issue purely dedicated to them, which is weird because again, from an education standpoint, it did exactly what it was supposed to be doing. It was teaching me about T cells, their lifespan and where they come from, how they work, the ways they end up getting divided and segmented out in different labels, all that stuff. Interesting. Again, just hadn't really developed enough of a care for these 2 specific characters to watch their background because you get to see how they grew up in this process and how they developed the dynamic that they have now as adults. I guess I probably would have liked it if maybe we got a little bit more time with the T cells before we saw that, kind of like we have gotten with the red and white blood cell, but even still, overall, this still continues to be a fun series. It still continues to teach me things. Hi, I have a Sammy. I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, I don't have a Sammy. Next up is actually a book that I ended up buying in my Come Book Shopping With Me vlog. I'll put a link to that in the cards up above, and turned around to almost immediately start reading it. And that's something I have not done in quite a while, which tells you that I was very intrigued. You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom by Vincent Torado. I did see a bunch of people on Goodreads equating this with Knives Out, but a Dominican family, and then add a paranormal element to the story. I don't know if I would quite say it's that, but like it definitely has elements of Knives Out, so I do understand the comparison. So in this story, we are following this Dominican family who, unfortunately, the patriarch has recently passed away, and the remainder of the family is gathering in his dilapidated house to read his will and find out, who was left what. However, not long after arriving, they end up getting trapped by a terrible storm, and then whenever the will is finally read, instead it says, I think it actually says right here so I can read it, "One of you is 𝗖cie, the demon that I made a deal with. Get rid of them or you will be damned." We follow 𝗖cie, the youngest of the family, who is also the grandfather's favorite, as she tries to figure out who in the family can she trust. Was her grandfather being serious? And if so, who is the demon? I will say this didn't quite give me the horror I actually wanted. Like from the synopsis, I had this idea in my mind of what I was expecting the final climax to be, and it definitely didn't really hit that for me, unfortunately. But even still, I had a lot of fun with this purely from a family drama angle. I do think the gothic atmosphere is definitely there. I mean, we are set in this dilapidated house. There's constantly something unsettling happening, a feeling like eyes are on you, secrets around every corner. It definitely had that gothic feel. Plus, I did really appreciate this angle of the story that looked at the dynamic between Dominicans and Haitians, which was something I personally was not aware of, and thought it was really interesting how torado worked that into the story between some of the characters. That said though, again, I do wish this amped up the horror. Instead, I would say the final climax kind of feels more in line with like a mystery story, like Knives Out, where there's like that final grand declaration moment where you figure out everything that happened and it's all explained to you, all laid out for you to understand. And I'll admit, the reveals actually did surprise me. I was shocked by some of the twists this ended up taking. Again, because of the family drama angle, I loved watching it all unfold and seeing everybody's reactions to it. Oh, I was eating that up. I did feel like 𝗖cie as our main character wasn't always super consistent, and she did kind of frustrate me as an investigator character, if you could call it that. The chapters were also on the longer side, with each one being a different timestamp. Like I said, the family drama definitely kept me reading, but I do think maybe shortening the chapters and doing like more frequent timestamps would have probably helped with pacing a little bit. Also, I do have to say, I do not recommend the audiobook. I tried to listen to it for like 2 chapters and it was not good. The narrator was really monotone and they hardly altered their voice at all for the different characters, so it got really confusing really quickly. Don't do that. Just read it physically. Again, even though I don't know if I would necessarily label this as horror, I still had a lot of fun with it. So I would still give this one 4 stars. It did kind of give me exactly what I was wanting as far as the family drama angle goes. I did just want things to be a little bit gorier, particularly at the end. There's references that what I wanted to happen happened, but like I wanted to see it all. I wanted to watch that all unfold on page, and I just didn't really get that. Next up, I read Nearly a Bride by Sabrina Jeffries, which I went into this knowing was like a fake engagement, opposites attract romance sort of thing. So this series seems to mostly be focusing on the time period during the Napoleonic Wars when a bunch of English people were basically trapped in France. So the heroes in this series were previously imprisoned in France, but now have returned back to England. Heath being one of those heroes, and he was also a bit of a rake while he was in France, but has definitely reformed. And now, unfortunately, he is having to fight for guardianship of his younger brothers because while he was in France, his father ended up drafting a will based on how Heath was acting like when he was 16 and now he is 30. Obviously, a little bit of a difference. And he comes to the conclusion that a way to kind of showcase he is more serious, he has grown up, is to get engaged. Lucky for him though, Giselle, a young French woman who he actually knew back in France and is the daughter of a friend, also is in need of help. She and her mother came to England with forged papers, and so she is hoping that Heath will be able to get them actual papers so they can try to settle down in the English countryside. So it starts out as a bit of a quid pro quo situation, but eventually feelings do start to develop, of course. I won't lie, I do think the most interesting thing about this one for me was learning about the relationship and the politics that were going on for the everyday people between England and France at this time period. Was not something I was particularly familiar with. That said, this is the second book in a series, and there are a lot of events that are called back to and referenced that I think must have taken place in the first book. And while I wasn't totally lost by not actually having watched all of that played out, it probably would have been beneficial if I did actually read the first book. Even though it's a romance series, it probably would have behooved me to go with the first book for once. There's also an entire plot line that goes on in this book that increases the stakes for Giselle's character and kind of pushes her to really try and work this thing out with Heath so that she can get real papers for she and her mother. That plotline basically goes nowhere, is only resolved, if you can even say resolved really, in the epilogue. I'm almost wondering if that's actually going to be more important in the next book in the series. I don't know, it kind of felt like that was maybe a little unnecessary in the end. I did like both of the main characters, Giselle and Heath. I really enjoyed Heath being a reformed rake. I liked the dedication to his younger brothers. I really liked the found family angle with that, especially when his brothers do meet Giselle and they start to form a relationship with her. I thought that was very sweet. Giselle herself is a very strong heroine. She would probably be considered like a spinster of the time because she is on the older side, which I personally enjoyed, but having a heroine who is exceptionally naive about sex is just an instant way to get on my bad side. And unfortunately, this did have that. And I just had a very hard time believing that she would still be so unaware of this stuff. I can't do it. I can't do it personally. We do learn pretty quickly that these two do have a little bit of history. Like Giselle had a bit of a crush on Heath when they were younger, but knew nothing was going to come of it. So from the start, there is a lot of sexual tension between them. The spice here was pretty good, I will admit. That said though, I just wanted a little bit more chemistry between the two of them. I don't know, like they bantered back and forth, but it never felt like these two were really head over heels for each other. Instead, strangely enough, it almost had kind of like an insta-lust feel because so much of their relationship felt like it was based in the sexual tension and then just like the conveniences that they have built up throughout this fake engagement. So in the end, this one was an enjoyable read, but like not necessarily a new favorite romance, unfortunately. I'd give this some 3.5 stars, but like I said, it is an original setup for historical romance, so I would recommend it for that if nothing else. And last but certainly not least is Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. This was my Geek Squad pick for May. So again, I do have a spoilery reading blog available of this one too. I enjoyed this so much. So this is set in a fantasy world that is very classic high fantasy, very reminiscent to D&D. Anytime there was something fantastical I did not know and I Googled it, D&D was almost always like one of the top links to explain whatever it was. So in this world, there are adventuring groups which are referred to as bands, and they are basically treated like rock stars. We are seeing through the eyes of Clay, who was a member of this band called Saga that was very well known, but he has been retired for quite some time. He got married, he has settled down and has a daughter, has a dog, an easygoing job as a guard protecting this wall of the town. But unfortunately for him, one of the other members of Saga, Gabe, comes to ask for his help because Gabe's daughter has unfortunately joined her own band to try and help with a war that is taking place on the other side of this magical forest. So Clay and Gabe embark on this adventure to get the band back together, try and survive their way through this magical forest so they can get to Castia in order to save Gabe's daughter. This was so much fun. I just had a really good time with it. A great action adventure story, really reminiscent to like Red, Ocean's 13, God, what's some others? Kind of like Thursday Murder Club a little bit, but with the added layer of this fantasy world, which just makes things all the more interesting. Probably the first half of the book is literally just them trying to get the group back together and accidentally kind of going off on all of these side adventures and quests to try and make that happen. I really enjoyed the band, the dynamic between all of them. I really loved getting to know each of them. I was very impressed at the way Clay's character in particular continued to grow throughout the story, how we were able to see layer beneath layer beneath layer of him to understand who he is and like the path his life has gone on and how he has come to be the person he is now. On the opposite side of Gabe, I really liked getting to see kind of how he has become the person he is at the start of the book and slowly starts to grow back to the person he once was. I thought the character work with those two in particular was especially strong. But again, just like the kind of found family feels this had going on, I really loved it for that. There are some moments here and there in the plot that I'll be honest, I do feel like they only resolve due to easy conveniences, lucky accidents, but every time it kind of just perfectly matches frustrated with the overall tone of the story, where it just never took itself too seriously. I can understand the humor in this not being for everybody, but personally, it worked for me. I thought it was hilarious. I gave this one 4 stars. I do feel like it kind of dragged a little bit at times when it came to the pacing. I will not lie. Even still, it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. All right, and on that note, that is officially it for today, y'all. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let's leave a croissant emoji for nearly a bride with the French. I don't know why that's what came to mind, but it did. Let's leave a croissant emoji in the comments down below. I have links to all of my socials, as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!